It was supposed to be the perfect summer weekend. I'd spent weeks planning this pool party, not just any gathering, but one with close friends, family, neighbors, and a few special guests. The grill was hot, music was playing low and smooth. Kids were splashing around, and adults were lounging with cold drinks and laughter echoing through the backyard. But right as the party hit its peak, the peace got shattered. Blue and red lights suddenly flickered at the edge of my driveway. Then came the sirens. And it all started because Karen from down the block didn't like what she saw. Karen Dash, our infamous neighborhood watchdog, had made a habit of complaining about everything from the sound of leaves being raked to the smell of barbecue. But this time, she took it too far. She called 911, claimed the party was out of control, disturbing the peace, and even hinted at suspicious activity. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, is who she had just tried to mess with. Because among the guests casually chatting by the pool that day was the governor's wife and their teenage son. Oh, and a handful of plainclothes security who weren't exactly thrilled by the sight of cops rolling in on a false call. You could feel the tension shift the moment officers stepped onto the property. Everyone froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. My heart sank, and I caught the nervous glance from the governor's security detail. One wrong move, and this whole thing could spiral. The best part? Karen, standing across the street, arms folded like she'd just saved the neighborhood, had no idea who was really at this party and what came next. Let's just say, this was the moment her smug little world got turned upside down, and it was only getting started. The officer who stepped forward looked confused, like he wasn't expecting to find a quiet, well-kept backyard with people calmly sipping lemonade and chatting by the pool. No music blasting, no crowd going wild, just a normal, laid-back afternoon. One of the security guys, tall, serious, with that no-nonsense energy, was already on the move. He calmly intercepted the officer before he could say much. I saw them speak quietly off to the side, their faces unreadable. But the officer's whole posture shifted once the badge was flashed and a name was whispered. He straightened up real quick. Meanwhile, Karen was still watching from across the street, her phone out like she was waiting for her viral moment. She had that satisfied little smirk, the kind that said, "I warned you all about them." She didn't realize was that her call had just triggered a whole lot more attention than she bargained for, and not the kind that ends with applause. Inside the yard, people were murmuring, looking toward me for answers. I tried to act calm, but my mind was racing. I'd met the governor's family a few months back through a charity event, and they'd been surprisingly down to earth. So when their assistant called to say they were in town and would love to stop by, I didn't think twice. What I didn't consider was how a simple neighborhood grudge could lead to a full-on police response. With the governor's teenage son sitting 2 feet from the diving board, tension hung in the air. The officer finally walked over to me, still glancing back toward the security team. His tone was polite, but I could tell he was trying to figure out how to handle this without ending up in trouble himself. And just then, before I could answer, Karen shouted something from across the street that stopped everyone cold. Karen's voice pierced through the warm afternoon air like a siren. About time someone showed up. That man throws parties like it's a nightclub. Her words made heads turn, and a few guests exchanged glances, unsure whether to laugh or cringe. The officer visibly stiffened, his eyes narrowing slightly as he glanced back toward her. The security team, meanwhile, was already murmuring into their earpieces, clearly escalating something up the chain. I could feel the heat not from the sun, but from the pressure building around me. This wasn't just about a noise complaint anymore. It was political, personal, and possibly career-damaging for more than one person involved. Then one of the neighbors stepped forward. Ms. Jennings, who's lived 3 houses down since before Karen even moved in, calmly approached the officer. "This isn't the first time she's done this," she said quietly. "Last month, she called 911 on kids selling lemonade. Before that, it was a birthday party for a 5-year-old. Her voice didn't waver, but you could hear the frustration beneath it. Another neighbor chimed in. Then another. One by one. People started stepping forward, not loud or dramatic. Just calmly letting the officer know that this wasn't about law and order. It was about one woman trying to control a whole street. But Karen didn't back down. She kept filming, muttering under her breath about influential people, thinking they're above the rules and how she had the right to a quiet street. She didn't know the governor's wife was standing nearby, sunglasses on, expression unreadable, listening to every word. Attention hung in the air like static before a storm. No one wanted to be the one to break it. But it was clear something big was coming. And when the unmarked black SUV pulled up in front of my driveway, everyone turned. Because whoever was inside had just changed everything. The unmarked SUV came to a slow, deliberate stop at the curb, engine humming low like it meant business. Everyone fell completely silent, eyes fixed on the dark-tinted windows. Even Karen froze mid-rant, her phone still held up, but now trembling slightly. The front door of the SUV opened first, and a man in a black suit stepped out clean-cut, built like he hadn't missed a workout in a decade. He scanned the crowd without saying a word, his eyes sharp and alert. Then the back door opened. Out stepped the governor himself. No campaign smile. No speeches, just calm, serious energy that carried weight. He looked around slowly, clearly taking in the scene, the uniformed officer. The guests now whispering in disbelief. The security detail standing close. And finally, Karen standing. Across the street, like she was seeing a ghost. Her expression changed so fast, it was like someone flipped a switch. Gone was the smug confidence. Now she looked confused, maybe even a little panicked. The governor walked over to his wife, who quietly greeted him with a few low words. He nodded, then turned toward the officer. The two of them shook hands, and although I couldn't hear their conversation, the mood was tense. The kind of tense that makes you hold your breath without realizing. Meanwhile, Karen backed up a step, still holding her phone but no longer recording. Her face had lost all color. Guests who were once relaxed and enjoying themselves were now standing in small groups, watching like something historic was about to happen. And in a way, it was. What started as a neighborhood complaint had turned into a political and personal standoff. The governor's son, still by the pool, looked toward his father, unsure what to do. The moment was thick with silence, like everything was waiting to snap. And then, without warning, the governor looked straight across the street, right at Karen, and began walking toward her. You could hear a pin drop as the governor crossed the street, his pace slow but direct. Karen stood frozen on her front lawn, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. For a split second, it looked like she might try to turn and go inside, but it was too late. The moment had caught up to her. Everyone was watching, and no one quite knew what he was going to say. He stopped a few feet in front of her. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "I understand you made a call to emergency services today. I'd like to hear why." His voice wasn't angry, it was measured, steady, but there was no mistaking the edge behind it. Karen opened her mouth to speak, but the words didn't quite land. It was loud people, strange cars. "I didn't know who was coming and going," she stammered. "I just thought something illegal might be happening." The governor raised an eyebrow. "Illegal? At a registered gathering, hosted by a vetted homeowner, with my wife and son in attendance." He didn't raise his voice, but the weight of every word hit hard. Karen looked like she might melt into the pavement. Just when it seemed like that would be the peak of it, another car suddenly pulled up behind the governor's SUV, a sleek city vehicle with government plates. A woman stepped out, sharp suit, tablet in hand, earpiece in place. She walked straight past everyone and over to the security detail. I heard one of them murmur, "Internal affairs." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about a call anymore. Karen's false report had triggered a review, possibly an investigation into misuse of public resources. Word was spreading fast. The local precinct had already been under heat for questionable responses, and this, a false 911 call targeting a private citizen while a state official's family was present. This could blow wide open. Karen's hands were now visibly shaking, and I could tell deep down she finally realized she hadn't just poked a bear. She'd stepped into a storm she couldn't control. The woman from Internal Affairs didn't waste time. She approached the officer still standing near my driveway and asked for his badge number in front of everyone. Then she turned to Karen, still frozen on her lawn. "We're going to need a full statement from you, ma'am, regarding today's emergency call. This includes the nature of your complaint, your reasoning, and any prior reports you've made involving this residence." Karen's face turned ghostly pale. She looked around like she was searching for someone to back her up. But the neighbors, who once quietly ignored her, now stood with arms crossed and eyes narrowed. The governor, Ate, gave a small nod to his wife, and security team then walked back toward the driveway, stopping just long enough to glance at me. "You handled this well," he said simply. "If only all our neighborhoods looked out for each other the way yours just did." I barely managed to thank you, still trying to process everything unfolding. The officer, now clearly aware of how serious things had gotten, mumbled something about procedures and began quietly retreating to his cruiser. Karen, still in shock, tried one last time to justify herself. "I was only trying to keep the neighborhood safe," she said, voice shaky. But that's when Ms. Jennings, the older neighbor, calmly stepped forward again. "By calling 911 on a peaceful gathering, with the governor's family inside. You've called the cops more times than I can count. Karen, this was never about safety. This was about control." The silence that followed said everything. But just as it felt like the story was closing, the Internal Affairs agent turned to me and asked, "By the way, did you file a permit for this event?" My stomach dropped. I blinked. "A permit?" I asked, confused. "It's a private party, in my own backyard." She looked down at her tablet, then back at me. "There's a reason I'm asking. Your address is flagged, and not just by her." That's when it hit me. Kieran Mitov started this mess, but someone else had been watching long before today. My heart skipped as the agent mentioned my address being flagged. I stood there, unsure if this meant trouble or just more questions. She noticed my face and quickly clarified. "Not because of anything you've done," she said. "There's been a string of anonymous complaints tied to this block, many of them coming from the same number. You just happen to be today's target." She glanced toward Karen, who was now quietly being led back into her house by another official. For once, she wasn't protesting. She looked more like someone who had finally run out of excuses. The governor's wife approached me gently and offered a warm smile. "You handled all this with grace," she said. "Most people would have lost it." Her son gave me a quick thumbs up before heading to the car, like the whole day had been an unexpected adventure. Their detail made sure they got out safely, and just like that, the SUVs rolled away, leaving behind only murmurs and the low buzz of disbelief as neighbors slowly returned to their homes. Several stopped by to apologize for staying silent. Too long for letting Karen's behavior go unchecked. It meant a lot. That day didn't just reveal Karen's obsession with control, it reminded everyone how important community really is. I didn't throw the party to impress anyone, and I certainly didn't expect the governor's family to defend it. But somehow, that chaotic afternoon brought the neighborhood closer together in the days that followed. Karen was issued a formal warning for abusing emergency services. And me, I went ahead and applied for a residential event permits just in case. But this time, when I host something, I know I won't be doing it alone. Because now, the entire block has my back. And Karen, she finally met the one party she couldn't shut down.